I used to believe betrayal had a sound. I thought it would be loud. Arguments, slammed doors, lipstick stains, something obvious. I never imagined it would arrive quietly, disguised as freshly trimmed hedges and a man who knew how to shape roses. For 12 years, I believed my marriage was solid. Madeline Harper and I built our life from nothing. Suburban house outside Denver. 2 steady incomes. Backyard big enough for summer barbecues. The kind of place where neighbors wave and nothing dramatic ever happens. Madeline worked from home as a marketing consultant. I traveled often for my logistics job, usually 3 or 4 days at a time. That routine never felt dangerous, until Ethan Cruz showed up. He was the new landscaping guy after our old service closed. 27. Former college athlete. Polite. Strong handshake. Said "sir" in a way that sounded respectful. At first, I appreciated his work ethic. The yard had never looked better. Clean lines. Perfect symmetry. Flower beds redesigned. Madeline started spending more time outside, saying the patio helped her focus. I didn't question it. The first crack wasn't physical. It was emotional. One afternoon, a meeting of mine got canceled, and I came home early. As I pulled into the driveway, I heard her laughing. Not polite laughter, not social laughter. Free laughter. She was standing barefoot on the lawn while Ethan sprayed water across the grass. Sunlight hit the mist like glass. For a second, they looked like they were in a commercial. When I stepped out of the car, the energy shifted. Subtle, but real. "You're home early," she said. Ethan nodded. "Afternoon, sir." It sounded practiced. I told myself I was imagining it. But over the next few weeks, Madeline mentioned him more often than necessary. She knew details about his life, how he moved from Texas, how he supported his mother through cancer treatment, how he started the business alone. I hadn't asked for those details. She had. Meanwhile, something between us began thinning. She stopped texting when I traveled. Conversations felt shorter. Even intimacy felt distracted. Like her body was there, but her mind was somewhere else. Then came the string lights. She wanted warm lights along the backyard fence. Said evenings would feel magical. I agreed. It seemed harmless. The first night they were on, she suggested wine outside. Ethan was still finishing up work. He offered to leave. She told him to stay. So the 3 of us sat under golden lights while he talked about soil aeration. And I noticed something small, but sharp. She leaned toward him when he spoke. She didn't lean toward me anymore. The moment that truly unsettled me happened 2 weeks later. I was upstairs packing for a work trip when I glanced out the bedroom window. From that angle, I could see the corner of the yard near the shed. Madeline was standing close to Ethan. Too close. He reached up and brushed something from her shoulder. Dirt. Maybe nothing. She didn't step back. There was a pause between them. Not accidental. Not friendly. Intentional. I stepped away before I saw more. That night I almost asked her directly. Instead, I said, "You and Ethan seem comfortable." She smiled quickly. "He's easy to talk to." Easy. When did I stop being easy? I hated how suspicious I sounded in my own head. Maybe I was insecure. Maybe I was tired. Maybe I was inventing a problem. So I decided I needed certainty before I accused the woman I loved of something that could destroy us. The following Monday, I told her my flight to Chicago was at 7 a.m. It wasn't. It was at 1 p.m. That morning, she kissed me at the door like always. Soft. Familiar. "Travel safe," she said. Her phone buzzed in her hand as I walked to the car. I drove 3 blocks away. Parked and waited. Not as a husband, but as a man who needed the truth. I didn't expect it to happen fast. I thought I'd be sitting in that parked car for hours, feeling stupid, questioning my sanity. Part of me hoped nothing would happen at all, that I'd laugh at myself later for being paranoid. But it took 23 minutes. I remember because I kept checking the clock on the dashboard like I was timing a race I didn't want to win. At 7:24 a.m., Ethan's truck pulled up. He never worked that early. My chest tightened, but I stayed still. I told myself there could be a reason. Emergency trimming, rescheduling, anything. He didn't unload equipment. He walked straight to the front door, and she opened it before he knocked. That was the first undeniable thing. She was waiting. He stepped inside. No tools, no gloves, no hesitation. The door closed. I sat there staring at the house that I paid for, feeling like a stranger outside my own life. I wanted to run in immediately. I wanted to explode. Instead, I waited. 5 minutes passed. 10. At 15, I walked toward the house. Not rushed, not dramatic, just steady. My hands weren't shaking. That surprised me. The garage keypad still worked. When the door lifted, the sound felt louder than it ever had. I stepped inside and closed it carefully behind me. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Then I heard it. Laughter. Soft. Close. Not from the yard, from the kitchen. I moved down the hallway slowly, each step feeling detached from my body. I wasn't angry yet. I was observing. When I reached the corner of the hallway, I could see into the kitchen without being seen. Madeline was standing close to him, closer than before. There was no confusion about what I was looking at now. No brushing dirt off shoulders. No plausible deniability. His hand was on her waist. Her hand was on his chest. They weren't kissing, but they were seconds away. And the way she looked at him, I had never seen her look at me like that. Not even when we were first dating. It wasn't just attraction. It was hunger. I stepped forward then, not dramatically, not yelling, just enough for the floorboard to creak. They jumped apart instantly. Madeline's face drained of color. Ethan stepped back like he'd been burned. For a moment, none of us spoke. I expected rage to explode out of me. It didn't. What came instead was something colder. Clarity. I thought you worked afternoons, I said evenly. Ethan didn't answer. Madeline tried first. You said your flight was at 7, I finished. Silence filled the space like smoke. I studied her face. The woman I married. The woman who once cried when we picked out this house together. The woman who said we were a team. Now she looked cornered, not ashamed. Cornered. That realization hurt more than anything. Ethan finally spoke. Sir, this isn't what it looks like. I almost laughed, because it was exactly what it looked like. But here's the part no one expects. I didn't yell. I didn't swing. I didn't throw him out. Instead, I stepped past them, grabbed my car keys from the counter, and walked toward the door. Madeline followed me. Please, just talk to me. Talk. Now she wanted to talk. I turned to her for the first time. Was this the first time? I asked. She hesitated. That pause told me everything. And in that moment, something shifted permanently inside me. Not heartbreak, not jealousy, detachment. I walked out without another word. As I drove away, my phone started vibrating. Call after call, messages stacking up. I didn't answer, because I understood something now. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't new. It had been growing in my backyard for weeks, and I had been watering it with trust. But what Madeline didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that I wasn't finished. I wasn't done asking questions, and I wasn't done planning what came next. I didn't go to the airport. I didn't go to a hotel either. I drove until the streets blurred and parked near a quiet park 10 miles away. I sat there for almost an hour, not crying, not shaking, just thinking. The strangest part of betrayal isn't the image you catch. It's the memories that rearrange themselves afterward. Suddenly, every late-night client call made sense. Every time she said she was exhausted when I got home. Every time she suggested I extend a work trip because you're already there. She hadn't been pushing me away. She'd been making room. When I finally checked my phone, there were 17 missed calls from Madeline and 3 from an unknown number. I knew whose number that was. I didn't call back. Instead, I opened our shared bank app. That's when things got interesting. 2 weeks earlier, there had been a $4,800 transfer to a local account I didn't recognize, labeled consulting expense. Madeline handled most household admin. I trusted her. I tapped deeper. The account belonged to a small LLC, Cruise Property Enhancements, Ethan's business. I stared at the screen for a long time. We paid him for landscaping. That was normal. But this wasn't an invoice amount. It was a direct transfer. And then I remembered something small. 3 months ago, Madeline suggested we diversify. She said investing in small local businesses could build passive income. I told her to handle it. I was buried in work. I never asked for paperwork. I trusted her. I drove home that afternoon, but I didn't go inside right away. I sat across the street watching my own house. Ethan's truck was gone. Madeline's car was still in the driveway. She knew I'd seen something, but she didn't know how much. When I finally walked in, she was sitting at the kitchen table. Crying. Real tears this time. "I was going to tell you," she said before I even asked. That line almost impressed me. It's universal, predictable, safe. "About the affair," I said calmly. She flinched. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." I ignored that. "What about the money?" Her eyes changed. That was the moment I realized the affair wasn't the full story. She hesitated too long. "We invested in his business," she said quietly. "I believed in him." We. Not I. We. Except I had never signed anything, never agreed to a number, never reviewed documents. I asked for the contract. She couldn't produce one. Because there wasn't one. It wasn't an investment. It was leverage. Later that evening, after hours of fragmented explanations, I pieced together enough to understand the shape of it. Madeline had been unhappy for over a year. She felt invisible, routine, replaceable. Ethan made her feel seen. That part was almost cliché. But here's what wasn't. She had been planning an exit long before I suspected anything. She'd been quietly shifting money, testing financial independence, building a safety net. And Ethan wasn't just a fling. He was part of her escape plan. The affair didn't grow in my backyard. It grew in her head. I went upstairs that night and looked at the house differently. The photos, the furniture, the carefully chosen details. I realized something unsettling. I didn't know when she stopped being my partner and started being my opponent. Downstairs, she was still crying. But the tears didn't move me the way they used to, because now I wasn't just hurt. I was aware. And awareness changes everything. I wasn't going to scream, I wasn't going to beg, and I definitely wasn't going to react emotionally. If she had been planning quietly, so would I. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was heartbroken, because I was calculating. Madeline thought I was processing the affair. She assumed I was upstairs drowning in emotion. I wasn't. I was reviewing 12 years of financial history. Here's what people don't understand about betrayal. Once trust disappears, clarity replaces it. You stop reacting. You start analyzing. By morning, I knew 3 things. First, the money she transferred wasn't random. It was staged over months in smaller amounts before the larger one, clean enough to avoid triggering alerts, careful enough to look accidental. Second, Ethan's LLC had been registered only 4 months ago. Before that, he operated under a different business name. Third, The deed to our house was in both our names, but the down payment had come almost entirely from an inheritance my father left me. I called a lawyer before I went downstairs. Not dramatically, not angrily, quietly. The consultation lasted 48 minutes. When I hung up, I felt something strange. Relief. Madeline was sitting at the kitchen table again, red-eyed, fragile. "I don't want to lose you," she said. That line would have destroyed me a week earlier. Now it sounded like strategy. "I'm not yelling," I told her calmly, "because I'm not confused anymore." She looked at me like she didn't recognize who was standing in front of her. "Good." I asked one simple question. If I hadn't come home yesterday, how long would this have continued? She didn't answer, and that silence was the real confession. Later that afternoon, I transferred half of our joint savings into a separate account under legal guidance. Perfectly lawful, documented, transparent. She noticed immediately. "You don't trust me." That question almost made me smile. Trust. The word sounded fictional now. 2 days later, Ethan showed up. Not to work, to talk. He looked nervous, smaller somehow. "Sir, I never meant to break your marriage," he said. That was the moment I finally understood something important. He wasn't the mastermind. He was a catalyst. Madeline had already detached long before he stepped into our yard. He just happened to be there. "I'm not angry at you," I told him honestly. And I meant it. Because anger implies surprise. I wasn't surprised anymore. The divorce filing happened 3 weeks later. Clean, controlled, efficient. Here's the twist no one expects.